people have died as a result of that after this is all over. But it's very real. And I do want to acknowledge and thank Governor Abbott for lifting that and allowing for visitation now and recognizing the danger of that to that population, because it's very real, and it took a lot of effort to shed light on that by a lot of different people. But it doesn't only affect the mentally incapacitated in those facilities. Think about the individuals that have died over the last 7 months for non-COVID related reasons, that weren't allowed those final moments and that dignity in death to be with a loved one. Think about that. It's hard to find the words to describe what it is. It really is. It's wrong, for sure. I remember when my own dad died. I was 8 years old, and my mom was right there next to him. And he had that peace, that love, that blanket. And that's a serious thing to take away from people. You know, you can go on and on about the impact of COVID and the other consequences. You have violent crime has skyrocketed, assaults, family violence, murders across this country. How many people have died because of those? Those are the COVID regulations that have just destroyed economic activity and produced idleness and frustration and stress for people. And also mental health problems have occurred tremendously. PubEd has been affected, like that was mentioned earlier. It goes on and on, and I'm not going to talk about them all today, but you see the point is that the regulations we put in place in response to COVID have had their negative impacts on our life. And moving forward, we have to make sure we hold our elected officials accountable to find the appropriate balance. Because where are we today? If you look at where we're at today, this also was mentioned earlier. In Texas, about 14,713 people have died out of a population of 30 million, approximately, which is a 0.04%. I think you mentioned 0.03% nationally, I believe was your statistic. And that's 0.0004 of the population. You know, these are some pretty significant consequences of restrictions for that percentage of the population affected to that degree. In HD 13, in House District 13, which represents 7 counties, that's the district I represent, we currently have 356 active cases. I'm not talking about deaths. I'm talking about active cases. That's it. 300, I think we have 25 here, or 26 here in this county. That's 0.17% actively infected. The question is the regulation being applied today appropriate for where we are at? I agree. I don't think it is for HD 13, and that's why I at a minimum, I push for separating communities. Recognize communities that are low risk. Please recognize the low risk communities and lift the regulations so at least we can move forward and repair our lives. And how do we do this? This was also alluded to earlier. You do it through communication. You don't do it through looting and rioting and murdering and assaulting people. You do it like the barn builders did it with the City Council of Columbus. They went and helped communicate to them to lift the emergency order in the county. And through that communication is where you make progress. You know, the biggest risk we have in House District 13 right now, and I wrote this in a letter to Governor Abbott, so he knows my feelings on it already. The biggest risk we have is the risk not to be able to put a roof over our heads or food on the table for our future generations and our citizens today. Here in this district, there's just no doubt about it. I will end with a quote from our late great President Ronald Reagan. I saw it the other day, and I actually am printing it on all my calendars because I think it's so relevant. Government exists to protect us from each other. Where the government has gone beyond its limits is in deciding to protect us from ourselves. And I think that has a lot of relevance today, because I'm asking, let me take personal responsibility, like was just mentioned, for my own health. Let me take responsibility for my health. Thank you very much. God bless you, and God bless Texas.
We're going to open it up to questions and answers. We'll try to repeat any questions so that everybody can hear. Do we have any?
He's asking the question, if they have 25 cases, does that mean 25 sick people? And the answer is no. Cases means PCR positive. So it's just a test. They can be completely asymptomatic. They might not have any issues at all. They may have issues. But cases, that's why I called it a case-demic. Most of those people aren't sick. Many of those are false positives, as I said. The PCR is amplifying up to a rate of 40, which is going to create a tremendous amount of false positives. So case-demic, it's not a pandemic. Most of those people are not sick. So the question is, Dr. Gold, who's one of the frontline doctors with us, said yesterday that we're going to file lawsuits in Texas and California. And the lawsuit is basically, trying to end the lockdowns and trying to end the draconian measures. And what was the rest of the question? I'm sorry. So basically, they're draconian measures. We're tired of them. This is the pandemic has filtered out. So we're filing cases in Texas, in California. It's been filed in other states, I think Pennsylvania, and they've already ruled that the draconian measures are basically unconstitutional. There's a Constitutional Rights Summit that we're going to have October 3rd. Both Dr. Emanuel and I are going to be speaking there in Austin, and we'd love for everybody to come if you can for that, because that will be the send-off. That will be the kind of the start of basically going after the governor, who's basically holding us hostage to some extent. I'm so thankful for what he said, that he's letting some of the counties, make their own rules, which I think makes a lot of sense. So I can't really argue with that. But overall, we're in a state of emergency, and what that means is they can do whatever they want. They can make whatever rules they want, and they don't have, like Governor Abbott doesn't have a practicing doctor on his COVID task force. He's got a bunch of bureaucrats, and he's got a doctor or two that actually doesn't practice medicine. So, we want to get after him and say, hey, come on, let's get off your chair here. Let us open up Texas. Let us get back to normal. We can do it. We've got medicine that works. And the other thing is we've got other things that we can do to help work. There's preventative stuff. I can bring that up at some point. But let's get Texas open. Let's get California open. And we figured if we can get Texas open, because when I came here from Connecticut, okay? And I remember talking and saying, Texas, I told my mom the first day, I love this place. I go, they believe they can do anything. They believe they can do anything. And I go, and I've never left. And so, let me say this, that's the can-do spirit. That's the spirit of Texas that I know. Not somebody who sits around and lets other people tell them what's good for them. So, like our speaker just said today, the quote, I love the quote. Can you say it one more time? What was that? Let us take. I think that's the reason why we're going after that. Yeah, the government exists to protect us from each other. Where the government has gone beyond its limits is in deciding to protect us from ourselves. We're tired of that. We're Texas. Let's take it back. If you want to speak, you can speak into the mic. That way everybody can hear the question.
I just got to say, I got the new name for you. Dr. Angel Stella.
I can't accept that name. I always say that the Lord Jesus is like the commander-in-chief. I'm just a sidekick.
Dr. Stella, the regimen for twice a month on hydroxychloroquine, what dosage is that, and is it every 2 weeks? So I'm wondering how long the effectiveness of the single 2 doses is overall. I mean, would you stay on that routinely until the pandemic is over, or what?
Yes, I'll stay on it till COVID goes bye-bye. Until COVID goes bye-bye. Like your children said. We'll stay on it until the pandemic is over. Hydroxychloroquine is very safe. Patients that have rheumatoid arthritis and lupus, they stay on this medication twice a day for years. So to take 1 pill twice a month is not a big deal. To have the peace of mind of you're not going to get COVID is really not a big deal. And you know what? And I say this as I'm just thinking. The flu is a coronavirus. I don't want anybody to come after me. I didn't do a double-blinded study. I'm just thinking. Now the flu is a coronavirus, and you never know. It might protect from the flu. I'm waiting to see. Because I'm waiting to see all the patients that I have on hydroxychloroquine, see whether they'll be protected. So yes, 1 pill twice a month. And like I said, go to frontlinemds.com. Frontlinemds.com. We have the card right here. Frontlinemds.com. You get a doctor in any state for those that are not watching from here. But Texans, we will take care of you.
Add on to that answer, because it comes back. Is this drug safe? It's not just safe. Okay, it's not just safe. Hydroxychloroquine. I've had over 3,000 patients in my own practice on that drug, and they came to see me about the toxicity of the drug. Okay, so that's one of the reasons I decided to speak up, because I know this drug incredibly well. I've repurposed its use for some other things on the body. The bottom line is I spend a lot of time thinking about it. It's not just safe. All right. What else does it do? It lowers your glucose, if you're on it. It lowers your hemoglobin A1C. It decreases your insulin resistance if you're obese or not obese. It actually helps your LDL cholesterol. It lowers your C-reactive protein. It protects us. People who are on it chronically have 70% less chronic kidney disease. It protects against heart attacks. It protects against strokes. It protects against thromboembolic phenomenon in the legs. Okay? It's not just safe, right? What else? Anything else? Yep. It helps in lupus, it helps in rheumatoid arthritis, it's antimalarial, it's antiviral, against many viruses, including the flu virus in vitro. Okay? So they haven't really, the only study they've ever done was done in 21-year-olds, and it didn't work. Well, what'd you expect? It's 21-year-olds, they're all lived. So there was no difference between the two groups. It probably likely works against most RNA airborne viruses, as I said earlier. But not only that, it actually, its autophagy inhibition actually helps against 16 solid tumors. Okay? So it has incredible effects in many things that plague us. It helps us in many things that plague us. And the people who have been on it chronically, not only was it safe, it was actually helping them in many instances for the diseases that we actually are affected by.
questions?
Oh, yeah, of course.
She sat down, so I wasn't sure.
Yeah, come on back up.
Just for some clarification, protocols are COVID-19, a China virus. I don't know if there's any clarification that y'all made. Is this a virus that has occurred in nature, or has it been developed in the lab? You want to answer that?
Yeah, okay, so that's a great one. Okay, so let's talk about that. I'm glad you asked that question. What she asked was, what is this a novel virus? That is the biggest joke I've ever heard, okay? Maybe there's some things that are novel. It's more novel now. It changed this week from where it was 6 months ago. It's an RNA virus. Okay, it's a family of viruses. There's 6 of them. This is the 7th, all right? Was it partially engineered? I don't know the answer to that. But the fact is, it's 80% of the others. So you're 50% of your brother or sister. You're 100% of a twin. This is 80% of some other coronaviruses. That's why we knew a lot about it back in February. That's why when I started looking at drug candidates, I started looking at past coronaviruses, because we had coronaviruses for 60 plus years. So there was a lot of evidence about the other coronaviruses and the effects of antivirals and other medications on those drugs. So this whole novel thing I was like, why do they keep calling it novel? It's 80% of other ones. I don't get it. It's novel, so was the other ones. They were all novel. Does that help?
And it's a China virus.
Mine is more a statement. It's my opinion that from the governor to the Congress, to the mayor, to the commission, to the city councils, they should all have to reduce their pay almost to nothing if they are going to impose rules that will kill people's work, kill their ability to make a living.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And you know, one thing, Dr. Stella, you heard her before. When you have to look patients in the eye, a lot of the people making these rules against hydroxychloroquine, they don't look patients in the eye that can't breathe. It's a lot easier to make a rule and say, hey, let's do this, let's do that. This is the data. We have your patients right in front of you can't breathe. It's a whole different story. And that's why we feel so strong. People are dying, and the people that are making the decisions aren't looking those people in the eye. It's a lot easier to look, to just look at a data set. Look them in the eye. Watch them when they tell you and they're crying and they can't breathe. And then tell me what you're going to do.
I would like to add to that, because I am a state representative and I do get paid, but it's $7,200 a year. Where's that gentleman that went? Right there. And I agree with you. When the government makes rules and regulations that prevents citizens from being able to earn compensation, then certainly the ones that do receive compensation that is for full-time compensation needs to be adjusted as well. I think that's a great idea, and I did want to make sure you're aware of that. So your state representative position is not like Congress, U.S. Congress, where they receive a lot of compensation or executive positions within our state. You bet. I'm a legislator. Our job is to legislate, means to make laws. That's right. That's right.
Hi. Just a response, sir, and in reflection of what Representative Lehman said. The mayor's my lovely bride. She is beautiful. She's doing this job as a volunteer. No one else wanted to do it. And she is paid a whopping $200 a month, $150 a month. And the very first order that she wrote, following state guidelines, was to close her own personal business. I'm sympathizing. Many of us have suffered. But please be aware, at least at the local and state level, I won't speak to the politicians in Washington, but at least at our state and local level, these folks are in the trenches with us. They are suffering and they are following with and suffering any decisions they are making for the rest of us. They truly. Again, it's a volunteer position, and folks are working very hard to do that, and we're always looking for new folks to help serve in those spots if you're volunteering. And yes, there is a lot that, from behind the scenes, I maybe can speak in ways that others won't. There has been an amazing amount of communications, of folks talking, of directions changing when new information suggests a different information is available. As far as what may have been addressed or people's concerns or worries, as far as personal agendas trying to cripple our way of life, I've seen nothing of that. I've seen folks struggling to figure out what is the safest balance. We will always look back and find what it's the Monday morning quarterback, couch quarterback can call it like an ace. But when you're in the game trying to make the decision and you don't yet know how to go, it's much harder than this.
Well, I'm gonna, excuse me, I'm gonna speak to that on just a little bit of a very local